G'day, legends, and welcome to the Pot Noodle. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight is Jared and Shane. How you doing, Shane?
Not too bad, thanks, mate. Not too bad. Back from spending time up in Gosford on the central coast of New South Wales. I think most people who tune in know that you and I are pretty big Melbourne Victory supporters, and they were in the final against the Mariners, played up in Gosford. So myself, my lovely partner, and good mate, and I'll call him friend of the pod, Vinny, all went up to Gosford to see the Vuck play, and that's VUCK for those who might be thinking that was a swear word very early on. It's Vuck. And unfortunately, despite leading going into second half stoppage time, they couldn't get the job done and eventually lost 3-1. So a bit of a tough journey back to Sydney, but did enjoy my time there on Sunday as well. So not all bad.
All I'm going to say on that, Shane, is Popper out. Absolute. I can't swear this early. He pooed the bed. There you go. With his tactics, absolutely ruined it. So disgusting. But anyway, no one cares about that. They're all here for the Celtic chat. How are you doing, Jared?
I'm doing great. I just had dinner. Had a double smashed shush burger with extra cheese.
Lovely.
It's yummy.
How tasty was it?
It was good. Now I got a glass of tears.
Gotta love it. Yep, a glass of tears to wash it down. Lovely. So, yeah, I think it's pretty obvious where the conversation on this episode is going to be. So let's be as smug as possible. Let's talk about the Derby Cup final and get your comments in. And we'll bring up as much as we can to make it as interactive as possible. So Patrick McLaughlin, Lisbon Day, Celtic v Rangers Cup final, 90th minute winner. Only Celtic can do that kind of stuff. Hail champions again. Absolutely. Smell the glove. G'day, double legends. G'day to yourself, Mr. Glove over there. Smelling the glove. Mark, champions win, losers play for Sevco. Boom, 100%. And RL77, does anyone like double entendres? I'll give you one. Nice. So, yeah, I think that the easy way to start off is we'll just get straight into the Derby talk. So, going into the game, it was a matter of hang on 1 second. Yeah, it was a matter of what was the starting lineup going to be. I think we pretty much all knew what it would be. So it was exactly what we thought. So the lineup was Joe Hart in goals, obviously, Alistair Johnson at right back, Carter Vickers and Scales at centre back, Taylor at left back, midfield of McGregor, O'Reilly, Hitade, up front, Kyogo with Maida and Forrest on the wings. The bench was looking pretty strong. With other than Bain, you take him out, and it's a pretty strong bench there. With Palmer, Ida, Kun, Naroski, Awada, Bernardo, Ralston, and Stephen Welsh, who I didn't think we'd see play because, he went off injured last time we played him. So, yeah, still a strong bench. And then on the other side of town, they started with this lineup. Yeah, I know. Everyone boo him. Boo him. It's disappointing, Tavernier. I'm not going to say Tav. It's disappointing. Butland, Tavernier, Balogun, Davis, Ridvan, Dimonde, Raskin, Cantwell. I had to be careful on that because we're still in the first 5 minutes. I can't call him what me and my wife are calling him now. Even she's got on board with it. Sterling, Silva, and Dessers. So, all things considered, we went in pretty strong. They went in looking like a bunch of overmatched. In my opinion, I didn't think they stood a chance, and the game was a lot closer overall than I thought. So, before we talk about our thoughts on the starting lineup and everything in pre-game, I want to address something from Smell the Glove. I read the guy who plays Toady on Neighbours is a Hun. Get it up him. Yeah, we've heard the Toadfish is that way inclined. Cop that. So, yeah, just what was your thoughts going into the game, Jared, with the starting lineup and everything like that?
Well, ours was as expected. I thought it was our performance wasn't as expected, but I mean that was the team that was on form. That's coming into the game. Like it's the best we've played all season. Their lineup surprised me because a lot of their players were injured. So like Ridvan and the other guy. Wait, I've got it right here.
Sima.
Well, yeah, Simo was coming back for injuries, but he was on the bench. Raskin, that's the one. I always get Ridvan and Raskin mixed
Two
up.
peas in a pot of filth.
They're-
Anyway, so continue.
They're always on the bench, so I don't know what they look like. So they've come back and they're starting. So I was kind of like, okay, like, are they going to be fit? Are they going to last the game? Even on the bench, they brought back Matondo as well, and Sima. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen with them. So they actually came out pretty hard, high press, high intensity, and it got me a little bit excited. I mean, again, in the first minute, Maida was up the left-hand side and managed to get saved by the centre-back, Balogan, or whatever the hell his name is. But yeah, also in their lineup, that was the only defensive players they had, their starters. They had no defensive players on the bench. And I don't even know if their two centre-backs had even played together before. And then they changed up the midfield. So you're looking at it going, okay, they've got players that are just coming off injuries. They're still going to be trying to get game fit. And you've got all these players in all different positions that they've probably not played together with. And then we came out and played like crap.
I actually thought, Jared, that their best defender early on was the pitch with us slipping over all the time. It wasn't their defense in the first 10 minutes or so that actually stopped us from doing any damage. It was that we just kept making passes and falling over.
Yeah.
And Shane, what was your thoughts heading into the game, seeing the lineups and everything like that?
Yeah, similar to Jared and probably yourself, Jared. Strongest lineup for us. Like that is our strongest lineup, right? That is exactly what we wanted. And so comparing it to what they put out in the park, and I agree with what Jared was saying, there was obviously a few unexpected names there, a couple coming back from injury. Was also very interested about how they would front up and whether they'd see out the 90 as well. So looking at the two lineups, I did feel like we obviously had a clear advantage already. And I thought that they were probably just going to be sort of holding on a little bit and that we'd probably take the game to them. And it didn't really pan out that way, to be honest. And I agree with you. Their best defender in the first half probably was the pitch. It was very noticeable early on that we were struggling to keep our feet a fair bit. But even then, I felt like we never really had a rhythm in that first half either. I couldn't really find the right balance between sort of breaking and trying to hit them on the counter, and then that other opportunity of where we try and control and knock it around and draw them out a little bit. It just felt like we didn't really link up well with our front third. Jared's right. They pressed us really high up. They were trying to win the ball back. They were really pressing up on our back four. But as soon as we got over that first wave, there was a lot of space in midfield for Calmac and O'Reilly to operate in. But I just felt like we weren't getting it up to our front third and letting them do the work. There were a couple of diagonal balls to Maeda, trying to keep Tavernier pinned in his half. I don't think we really isolated Forrest against their fullback. Is it Yilmaz? I don't think there was really much of an opportunity for him to get at him. And yeah, there were a couple of half chances here and there, but overall it was a pretty even first half. I don't think either team really ever got control of the game, and they were trying to disrupt us as much as they could, and I don't think we were able to play through as well as we could have.
I think, honestly, the first half was, Patrick's saying it here as well, which was what I was about to get into, was first half they low blocked us and then they went high press in the second. It confused the life out of us. Now, on that, what I think with the low block, what they did was they just overloaded the middle of the park. They went a 4-4-2. And then every time we tried to do something in the middle, they just tried to have that one extra man in the middle there. And Hatade got marked out of the game. I think he was non-existent. And then you have a look at O'Reilly didn't really do much in the first half in particular. Like he had a couple of passes, but he wasn't at his usual levels. Kelmac was just out there battling and getting lumps kicked out of him and not getting any fouls and stuff, which we'll talk about the referee performance later on. But when you look at the way the game played out, it looked like because they were overloading and sitting so deep, what did it end up happening? That recycle, where we get the ball wide to Johnson. We can't get anything going to Forrest. The ball would come back, go to Carter Vickers, go to Scales, go to Taylor, go down the line to Maeda, into Kelmac. We can't get to Hatade and O'Reilly in the middle there. So then we reverse it again and go the other way and just keep the ball and keep recycling. And when you look at the stats at the end of the game, we had I think we had 64% possession. So that pretty much sums it all up. First half in particular, it was so noticeable. We had so much more possession than them. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how it all played out. Like, it was for me, I'm just looking at it going, neither team really created anything. But at the same time, it was one of those games that if you're a neutral, it would have been an interesting battle to sit there and watch. So I don't know. I just think it was a bit of a ugly first half in general.
It was an ugly 89 minutes.
So usually we talk about the first half goals, but there's nothing to talk about there. So what I want to talk about is Shane, you mentioned it before about the disrupting in the middle of the park. Like, first player booked, I think, was Kelmac, and all it was him running alongside, I think it was Cantwell.
Yeah, it was.
And bumped him, and down he went, and the refs booked him, saying it was for repeat fouls for a midfield, not just him. But then you get in the second half, and in the first 10 minutes of the second half, Cantwell's fouled him 3 times in a row, and no card for him. So I know we're going to talk about the referees and a couple of particular things like a penalty and red card. So we'll talk about that later, but I also want to talk about the actual inconsistency of the referee right here, because it was hard for us to get any rhythm because they were sitting so deep. We kept slipping over, and then we kept getting what were fouls. He'd just go, play on, advantage. But then when they'd do it, it'd be whistle, stop, and get the game going. And it broke the game up and didn't let us have any flow. So that's how I felt the first half all played out. You put all that together and it made it an absolute shambles. So I think we'll bring up some comments here, and then we'll get into the second half. So we had here Patrick McLaughlin. I think Clement gave us an indication on how he plans to play Rogers next season as well. So we need more quality. There's that word, quality. Michael McDonald, the game was only close because of their tactics and anti-football. Yep. Andrew saying the service didn't help us early on. We were slipping all over the place, nullified our potency. Boys, if you want to jump in off any of these when I read them, feel free to as well.
Well, that one, I was going to say, we slipped over like 10 times. Rangers didn't slip over once. They're playing on the same surface as us. Why are we slipping over? What's the difference? Do we need better shoe sponsors?
I think the anti-football one, just to get to that one's really important. And I think part of the reason it's important is to look back at how they've played against us throughout this season so far in the league, in which there were countless times in various first and second halves where they didn't lay a glove on us. And I think this was definitely drilled into them that they needed to be somewhat imposing and try and disrupt us, whether that be, as soon as they'd win a free kick, trying to just delay the game as much as they could, with Cantwell sitting down and basically trying to go the ref and fourth official into booking our players, or just kicking lumps out of them. It was no doubt a noticeable shift compared to what we've seen throughout earlier in the season, where at times, even at Ibrox, we just run rings around them and they wouldn't lay a glove on us. So, yeah, I think that's a really important point about them disrupting us with those kind of tactics.
Yep. So we'll keep going here. So what do we got here? So when we were talking about early on about certain players being injured, saying certain players are injured is part of Baltimore's strategy. And then Patrick McLaughlin replied to that saying, Walter Smith done that all the time. And then he was like, I don't know how many times Goff, Gazza, and McCoist were in doubt. Fair point. Andrew Galea is saying Atade took a heavy knock early on that affected his performance. The thing I noticed early on with that as well was Atade and Kyogo both had their mouth guards in, so they knew it was going to be a physical one.
You touched on it, Jared, earlier. Geez, I'm going to get that wrong a couple of times tonight. You touched on it earlier, Jared. He definitely wasn't involved in the game. Like, he was very isolated. Even when we had that space in midfield and McGregor and O'Reilly were getting on the ball, I could barely notice Atade. And I think the only times I did notice him were on the occasions where he was either called for a foul on Cantwell or whether he'd been hacked down. That was pretty much it. So, yeah, he just couldn't find any flow into the game.
The other ones were when he misplaced a pass and I'm yelling, bloody Atade.
But let's be positive. He did have the only goal chance in the first half as well that ended up being blocked by Davies. Yeah. And I think if Davies wasn't there to block it, that was not being stopped by Butland.
Fair
point. Andrew Galea they set up to stay in the game as long as they could, and it nearly worked. And then, smell the gloves, Sony. We had a poor first half, a crap second half, but a great result. And Patrick is saying both teams were shocking in the final third all day long.
Yep.
So I think that's a fair assessment so far. Just having a look here. Andrew, the pitch was rotten, didn't help our football. There we go. Yeah, Jared, off you go.
One stat that I looked up for the weekend, because it's what I've noticed, and I wanted to find out if there was a stat for it. And it was about attacking play and dangerous attacks. Because whenever they looked like they attacked, like we'd attack for 10 minutes and just the ball would go back to Joe Hart. It would be up and down the field, would keep possession for a lot, but it didn't look like we could get it in the box. Then they get the ball for about 30 seconds and they're downfield. And if they had anyone that could actually kick a ball, that might actually give us trouble. So I found the stat, and it's about total attacks for the game. Celtic 78, Rangers 70. So we're very almost equal on like attacking play. But this is where it shits me. Dangerous attacks, we had 46. Rangers had 63. So we're going to attack, but we're not doing anything. We're not getting the ball to our forwards. That's why Kyogo taken off. He done nothing the whole game. We're not doing anything. Whereas then they get us on the counter. We've got some bloody centre back just pushing people over and letting people in, and they're actually looking like they're going to actually get some like dangerous balls in. Like, it's just lucky that they lack the skill. I mean, with the 64% possession, we had 8 shots. They had 11, and we had 3 corners. They had 11. So we're not doing anything with it in that attacking position, and we're a bit of a bomb scare when it does go back.
Yep, I'd have to agree with that. The thing I did notice, so as you're saying, Kyogo did nothing. What he did do, in my opinion, was he ran Balogun absolutely ragged for the time he was on, which meant his legs were gone when you brought on the bigger eater to go at him later on. So even though Kyogo, when I'm looking at the game, I'm like, I wish he did more with the ball. You look at the work rate and how many times he had Balogun turn around chasing him, walk him out to then create the chance in the space so that the guys later on, their centre-backs couldn't keep up.
They definitely, just to Jared's point, they were definitely trying to make things happen when they did break and get the ball back from us, and they were trying to get forward. And I noticed Tavernier getting forward, and I thought in that first 45, he got into our half more than he had done in any other game against us previously this season. He was getting up the park, and that was a noticeable change and a shift from what he'd done previously opposed to Maeda, where he's almost pinned exclusively in their half. So, yeah, definitely, when they were getting the ball back from us after disrupting us, they were trying to go forward and make things happen. And, yeah.
On that, Shane, I'm going to jump on that, because what you're saying is that Maeda didn't pin Tavernier back as the way he normally does, right? Did you notice Taylor having a go at Maeda during the game a couple of times?
I
'Cause I saw
didn't.
it.
I didn't notice that, but I noticed Maeda a couple of times not tracking back as he normally would, or at least not tracking back as hard as he normally did. And so I probably just took my eyes off it at that moment where Greg was sort of maybe having a go at him. But it was very noticeable Tavernier was getting forward.
The reason I said that is, and it's not the way you said, I saw it differently. First half in particular, Taylor was getting caught out of position. He's getting sucked in more into this over towards Scales, and Maeda was having to go all the way to left back and all the
Okay.
way forward. So he was having to track to Tavernier the whole way up and down, up and down, up and down, the whole thing, rather than having the guy in Taylor sitting behind him so Maeda can press him hard. And then if he goes, we've got someone to pick him up and make it a two-man job on him. We didn't have that in the first half in particular. And Taylor said after the game that if that went to extra time, he was fearful or something like that. I think I don't know what the wording was, but something along those lines. He didn't want it to go to extra time because he was feeling leggy and his legs were gone. Well, why? You have the guy with 18 lungs in front of you in Maeda doing all that running. And if Maeda's getting tired, which he looked towards the end of the game, clearly there's an issue here. Was it Maeda or was it Taylor not getting himself out of position and constantly having to recover, doing all this extra running, which then meant Maeda had to do more work, which got him tired? Because to me, I thought Maeda was probably one of our best three players for the game in terms of sheer
Especially at
work
the end. When they swapped, they had to swap Sterling off because I think he got injured or something, and they had to swap Dessers off. So they ended up finishing the game with speed, and that scared the crap out of me against Taylor. You could see Taylor was struggling to keep up down that wing. So I can see why he said he was a bit leggy. But it's just lucky that the people with speed on their team were injured and actually came off the bench.
Yep, 100%. So we'll get into just a general chat about the second half, right? So for me, really simple. It was the second half reminded me a lot of, that 6-week period there where between, say, February and the start of April, where we were dropping points and we just looked out of rhythm and had no structure and how we're playing, and we were getting pressed and we just looked rattled. That's what the second half reminded me of until we got those couple of late subs, which Rogers got absolutely perfect by bringing Hatade off, bringing Bernardo on, bringing Kyogo off after his shift, bringing Ida on. By bringing those two on, those subs changed the game for us. But until that happened, I thought we were actually the worst team in the second half. Ever so slightly, but I'm not saying I was worried we are going to lose the game, but I just thought if they had have scored, it probably would have been deserved. What do you think, Shane?
So I'm going to indulge a little bit because my recollections of the second half are a little bit hazy. So just to get back to what I was saying at the start, by the time we finished up in Gosford, we were heading back from Central Coast, New South Wales, back into Sydney, and the game had started by the time we were still on the train. And unfortunately, my phone had run out of batteries, so I had no chance to actually watch it. And in all honesty, I was feeling pretty despondent anyway. But it was actually Vinny who said, "Mate, we've got to go and we've got to watch the boys, the hoops lift another trophy." So he very much dragged me out to Scruffy Murphy's to go and watch the second half. So we wandered in midway through the second half, not long before it all kicked off with Joe Hart and so forth. And so my memories, if they serve me correct, I won't talk about that incident. I'm sure we'll dissect that specifically later. But my memories were similar to yours, Jared, that we just weren't playing that very well. And but when the subs came on, things started to change, and all of a sudden we did look like we had a bit of control. And that was pretty much how I saw it as well through my hazy memory.
Yep. So I'm just going to bring up some comments here. So Smell the Glove was Taylor having a go at Maeda for work rate is like calling Daniel Day-Lewis a crap actor. Fair point.
That's a good analogy. I like that one.
And then Patrick's like, it was almost like semi-final Gio Van Bronckhorst won against us. Andrew's saying Hatade could have come off earlier. And then Michael will talk about the penalties shortly, but Kyogo should have had one of the 2 penalties we never got. And then Smell the Glove saying around 75 minutes, I'll admit I was getting worried it wasn't going to be our day, especially when they had a couple of corners back. I think they had 2 or 3 corners back to back to back. And, they kind of caught Taylor out of position a few times. Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. Jared, what was your overall thoughts that second half?
Well, the second half was similar to the first, but in the first half, I thought our passing was phenomenal. When they were pressing us, we were getting one-touch passes and getting around them. Again, not doing anything when we got forward. But then in the second half, everything was still the same, except our passing wasn't on. And it was the only thing that was really positive in keeping us in possession and keeping us going forward. So we kept losing the ball, having to come back. And we were getting to the point where it was getting to Joe, and Joe's just putting it down the field again. Like, that's how teams play against us. That's not how we're meant to play against them. And if we didn't make, if we had made subs earlier, I would have been happier. Because you look at we've got hindsight. You look at what happened with the subs, and how it changed our attack, and even in defense. Like, there was a few key defensive plays and turnovers from Kun that helped actually get the ball and drive forward. Ida was much better up forward. I think he had a really good game. And Bernardo just gave us that energy that seems to be missing from Rio and Matt O'Reilly in that game. And he was actually trying to drive the ball forward, where it seems like everyone else was just kind of going side to side, backwards, side to side, backwards. He was actually trying to go forward, and look what happens. Just, you get a crack, have a crack, and look what happens. Like, their centre backs, I think they saw the ball go past, and then we're like, oh well, we'll stop. Ida was the only one that didn't stop, followed through, and got the winner. Bit lucky, but at the end of the day, it's all that matters is we had one more than them.
One other thing I want to touch on, we spoke about Bernardo coming on, and we spoke about Ida coming on. The other sub was Jamesy Forrest, just kept trying to come inside most of that game, and he was having no luck. The other sub that we made was bringing Kun on and his magnificent hair and putting him on the right, and him absolutely I thought that was a good upgrade for us as well. Those 3 subs worked. The other thing I was wrapped that we only made 3 subs in the game instead of 5, because I was sitting there going, do not bring Palmer on. Where's Robert Gibson in the comments here? Because me and him would be, cut from the same cloth here. I was like, do not bring him on. That was not the game for him. And I think Rogers, with the 3 subs he made, was good. The only other potential sub I think we could have made would have been possibly, if we had scored the goal a little earlier, we probably would have brought a Wada on to shore things up in the middle. But that's the only other change I reckon we could have potentially seen in the subs. But yeah, I was really happy with what we got. So next thing to talk about here is, come on, there it is. The goals in the second half. Now, the first goal that wasn't that they're all carrying on about, they're having a meltdown. I'm sitting there watching the game. I knew the result, right? Because I didn't watch it live. I watched it with my wife yesterday because we had a few things on the weekend. And all I knew, I deliberately went into a social media blackout. I had it. By the time I watched the game, I had about 400 messages on WhatsApp from the Celtic Down Under group chat, the Axon group chat, and one other one I'm in. Did not look, didn't want to know anything other than the result. I knew we won 1-0. So I was like, okay, I can relax. But I reckon if I did not know that we won 1-0 and that goal went in, I would have been screaming at the tally, been an absolute feral. Wouldn't have been a nice place in the My Couch CSC in the lounge room. But as soon as it went in, my wife looked at me and she's like, what? I thought we won 1-0. And I'm like, and I looked at her and I go, no, they pushed, Hearts got pushed under the ball. And she's like, what? And then we've seen the replay and she's like, yeah, you're right. 2 hands in the back. It's a clear foul. Like, I'm just glad I'm actually shocked, to be honest with you. I reckon if Raskin only had one hand in his back instead of two, would Beaton in the VAR box have actually brought that to the referee's attention? No. But because it's two hands, he has to. So that's where we talk about a clear and obvious error. We actually got that one right. We'll talk about the penalties and stuff in the very next thing, which clear and obvious didn't happen. But in that situation, we actually got one right. And off the back of that, I thought Raskin got the yellow card for pushing the keeper because normally that's what it is. So when he got booked later on, I was raging. I'm like, that's his second yellow. Get him off. Like that. And the ref kept him on. Found out it was Joe Hart getting a yellow for abusing the ref. Good on him.
You confused me there. I was like, wait a minute. He came back and gave a yellow, but I just assumed it was Raskin.
Yeah, I had to get onto Google when I was watching it and going, what the hell? And then scroll down and see, go, oh, okay, it was a yellow to Joe Hart. And I'm like, he must have copped it for abusing the ref. But the tactics they used on the corners where they had the in-swinging ball coming in at Joe Hart and putting about 3 or 4 big guys around him and just blocking him out, it was pretty well planned by them. I will say that. But yeah, Raskin, joke. But their fans saying, "Oh, it's never a foul." You can't push the goal. You can't touch the goalkeeper, and you can't push him under the ball like that. So definitely not a goal. And then our goal, Shane. I'll let you talk about our goal.
No, I'm going to let Jared go first. I'm curious to see what Jared says about it. Sorry,
Which
Jared.
goal are you talking about?
Our goal. The game
Did
winner.
we only score one?
He leant into it before. I don't want to steal his thunder.
I already said my bit. Like, and this is why. This is why people don't like me. I was begging for Palmer to come on because that's what we needed. Is what, like, yeah, Maida was running up and down, but he wasn't doing anything going forward, and we needed a goal. And Maida was not going to be scoring a goal, just like Kyogo. Yeah, he might have done a lot of work and got people tired, but you know what? You're a striker. You might just freaking score goals. So I was begging for Palmer to come on because Palmer would just get the ball and just boot it towards the goal. And at that point in time, after 75 minutes, I was getting a little bit nervous. And that's pretty much just what Bernardo did. Like, he ran up the field, the two wingers went wide, and then they were worried about Matt O'Reilly. So they were just like, oh crap, let's stick on him. So Bernardo keeps running, goes, well, let's just have a whack. And it was a pretty decent, because no one pressured him, so he got some freaking power behind that, and Butland couldn't hold on to it. I think because it came straight at him. I think if it's a bit of a better kick, he would have saved it. But yeah, both their centre backs just kind of go, oh, the ball's gone past us. Let's stop and look. Putting Ida onside, who's the only one who decides to keep going, which is his strength. He's good with one-touch passes. He's terrible if he's got time. So it was good that we didn't actually give Ida time on the ball, and it's actually managed to squeeze it underneath Butland. Pretty decent shot. Why does he get that and he freaking misses open goals? But he scored when it's he always does that. He scores when it matters. So good on him. Let's get him signed. And Bernardo.
He's spending all the money.
So.
Yep.
On that, well, we've got here RL77 saying sign Bernardo, 6 million will be a steal in a couple of years. We'll talk about the 2 loan players shortly as well. That's something I want to talk about a little later on. But Patrick said early on in the pod, Bernardo's shot was the only one that properly tested either keeper. Fair call. To me, I think it was as we're talking about Bernardo, he's got that good from 20 yards out. He's got a leg cannon. And if you watch his highlight tape before he came in, I was like, oh, look at him hitting these ones, bloody howitzers into the top of the net and all this sort of stuff. And I think that was the first time we've seen him really unleash that shot. And when it happened, watching it, and I'm like, at first I was like, is Ida onside? And then I'm like, oh, but the keeper saved it, so it doesn't matter. And then when we watched the replay, he was onside anyway. from the shot, so it doesn't matter regardless. So yeah, it was class finish from him as well. No time to muck around, just get it underneath the keeper. But I'll bring up a couple of these comments here. So Patrick saying Bernardo and Eder linked up at Ibrox to make it 3-2, then Saturday to win a cup. Big moments. I think we signed them both ASAP. Patrick's fired up was saying Bernardo can be O'Reilly's replacement, no problem. Give him a 30-game run. I don't agree with that for one simple reason. If we're going to keep Bernardo, we keep Bernardo because of the player he is. I don't want our board looking at it going, oh, we're going to bring in 30+ million for O'Reilly. So we'll just spend 6 on Bernardo because he's already here and then bring in a project player. I want us to replace O'Reilly with a quality player of equal standing and have Bernardo come in and challenge for that spot. Whether it's Hatade's spot or it's whoever's coming in to replace O'Reilly, I want him to battle it out because that squad depth, having 4 starting level players or 5 if you put a Wada in for 3 spots, makes more sense long term. Pegleg's saying Bernardo is not Portuguese under-21 captain for nothing. And then RL77 making a great point here. Butland is overrated. Here, I bring up the one where you said it right. Butland is overrated. Bolton would have dealt with that shot much more effectively.
That's good. That's very good. I like
So
that one a lot.
And then Andrew Galea is saying, fair play to Bernardo. He put his foot through it. Great goalkeeping.
I can sense a bit of sarcasm in that.
Yep. So realistically, just want to we're going to go through the red card stuff. We'll go a little player focus, and then I want to go through who was your man of the match. Okay, and then we'll finish our talk about the game, and then a few other things, and then we go from there. So for me, there was how many penalty incidents were there? There was the handball, clearly. Yep. And then there was another one possibly later on that I don't think was in the box, but
no, are you talking about the one for them?
For them, which was a foul outside the box. Like they fouled Taylor and then Scales fouled them, and that was outside the box. But their fans are carrying on that it was in the box. So the 2 penalties not given. Their one, definitely not a penalty. Our one, every day of the week, that's a penalty, especially with what's been given during the season. Anyone?
I've got 2 opinions on that. My actual thoughts on the handball is it's not a handball, but the way they've been refereeing it all season, it is a handball according to their rules. Like that, this is the handball rule that just absolutely gives me the shits. I mean, like when you put it in stills, it looks bad, but that's just bounced off of Kyogo's head straight into him as he's running. Like he hasn't tried to hit it. He didn't know the ball was coming. His hand was by his side. Like this is where they just go, let's get a picture like that. Does the ball touch the player's hand? Yes. Oh, let's give a penalty. And I think we need to remember how important penalties are. A penalty is almost a guaranteed goal. Like
not for us.
That's why I hate that.
Yeah,
not for us.
Yeah, it's about a 50% chance.
But that, and it's just about consistency. Like for me, there's been too many handballs given as penalties because it touches the player's hand. But a handball, like to me, like his hand didn't move. His hand was by his side as he was coming up behind Kyogo, hit off Kyogo's head, and then hits his hand. He didn't move towards it. He didn't try and do anything. But all season, they've been calling that a handball. So why is it suddenly now not a handball? My opinion on that is that sort of thing shouldn't be a handball, and it's been destroying games by giving penalties away for stupid things. But if you're going to call it a handball for the rest of the season, then you have to call it a handball here. Because it's even more obvious than some of the shitty handballs that they've had. That's the thing that's annoying.
So I'm going to bring up some comments here. We've got Andrew Galea, penalty all day, brother. Smell the gloves saying Thierry Henry would have been proud of that handball control. Pegleg saying that's not a penalty, but the one at Tynecastle is. The thing for me is
that's a good
the
point.
key word is unnatural position, and that's what that is. That's the
Yeah.
reason. If his arm was closer to his body, like just next to him, and it hit him, I wouldn't have a problem. But that and what they've called all season would be. Now, the other thing is this: beaten on VAR for both Davies non-penalty and the Awada penalty. It's hard to explain. So both of these, it's the same guy on the VAR who didn't give us the penalty on this one, but then the penalty against Awada early in the season where it hit him just here on the shoulder. Like, it's the inconsistency that I spoke about, not just with the ref, but the VAR. But that's what I like about this. We can all have a different viewpoint and have a different discussion. I'm not saying you're wrong, Jared. I'm saying I saw it this way, you saw it that way. Cool, happy days, we move on. We don't have to have a falling
Maybe
out.
more of a want. Like to me, I'm just like I'm sick of so many shitty penalties given that change games just off of some simple little handball like that, or the Awata one, which they said that it wasn't. It needs to be stop giving a penalty because the ball touches the hand. Like let's go over the definition of a hand and like a natural position. Like you said, his hand's not down. If you're coming up behind someone, you're not freaking running like that. That's not a natural position. It was just out slightly. Like, I'm not thinking about it as Celtic and Rangers. I'm just looking at it as the handball thing, because it's one thing I want to change for next year. This needs to be more specific, and I think we need to like, do they swipe at the ball? Is it actually going to change anything in the game? All that sort of stuff. For this season, it's 100% a handball. I just don't like the handball rule and what it actually, in being in the box, what it does to change a game.
So, before you jump in here, Shane, I'm going to bring this up. Patrick saying Bobby Madden gave an explanation as to why that isn't a penalty. Andrew Galea saying if that was our defender, it would have been a penalty. So that's the different viewpoints. For me, I agree with you on there, Jared, in that, okay, with what happened and what's been called this season, it should be a penalty this season. But common sense, long term, I hope Willie Collum can come in and fix this. Because I don't know, I'm a 50-50 on is that a penalty or is that not? I think his hand is in an unnatural position. And I'm just looking at it from a Scottish football perspective. If that was in the A-League here, Shane, would that be called a penalty?
I have no idea. I don't know anymore, to be honest with you. I think it probably would. And for me, I look at it and think it's a pen.
Yeah, same. But it's
know,
all at the moment.
And I see where Jared's coming from, right? There's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of grey area with handball, and we see a lot of them. And we'll look back at Awada at Tynecastle, right? That's never a handball. VAR should have never stepped in there and overturned that. You know, there is nothing about that is a deliberate handball. And you could very much argue in some regards that maybe this one on the weekend just gone wasn't a deliberate handball either. But there's no doubt his arm's away from his body, you know. It hits him flush on the hand. We've seen them given all season long. Maybe, you know, if you're not wearing blue, you know, then it probably
say, Shane.
Yeah, like if you're in blue, it's not being given, and you're allowed a couple of players to actually act as pseudo goalkeepers, but it's been consistently given all season. What I was a little bit surprised at, and I couldn't tell from the telecast or not when I rewatched it, is whether there was even a conversation about it or whether they just simply continued on, whether there was even a discussion between, you know, the VAR and Nick Walsh about, oh, hang on, let me just check this. It seemed like the game got underway relatively quickly afterwards without much of a review. Now, you know, regardless of where you sit on it, it's something that you need to actually double check and say, well, hang on a second, let's assess here. Look, there's definitely grey areas, but for me, I saw that and thought, no, that's a pen. And was surprised that well, in some regards, I was surprised it wasn't given, but I was definitely surprised there wasn't a conversation about it.
The last point on that I want to say, I'm going to give the final word on that to the exact quote my wife said when we were watching the game together yesterday. Even Ray Charles would have given that as a penalty. So
that's because he doesn't know the rules.
So, I'll leave that topic right there. But yeah, so I want to move on to the red cards part that I mentioned. So for me, I thought they take Raskin out of it because I thought he should have been off. And then I found out, no, it was actually Joe Hart booked, as I said earlier. So that rules him out. I think they should have had 3 players off. And this isn't me just having green tinted specs on. The 3 things are you can't kick out at a player even if your legs are tangled. So I can't remember which one that was, but he should have been off.
Was that Seema and
Diamante.
AJ?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
Early in the
that
second
one,
half.
yep. So that one should have been a red card. You can't kick out. If you just have your foot on the ground and you're trying to shake it loose, fine. But once that foot comes off the ground, so he shook the first and then kicked him on the second, that second kick is what should have got him the red card. So that's number 1. Number 2, when the subboard goes up and it shows that Cantwell is being taken off, and then he goes to, rather than going off the field, goes at Greg Taylor, I think it was, and puts his hands up at his head like that. Once you're subbed off, you can't get a yellow. You can only be red carded. He should have been sent off because you can't clash with someone's head like that with the hands. So that's a red card. I'm not clutching at straws. Letter of the law, that's a red. He should have been off. Third thing, at the end there was another one. A high boot went flying through. I think it was was it Taylor or was it? I can't remember who it
Maeda.
was.
Is that Maeda?
That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah. Red cards boots come through. If Yang was red carded against Hearts for the same sort of high boot and contact, then that should have been a red as well. So there you go. I just think it's like, where's the VAR looking at them for clear and obvious? Now I know clear and obvious. Were any of them, Shane, clear and obvious? Should they have been red cards in your opinion?
I thought the 2 kick out ones definitely needed a look at. The Seema one with AJ, he definitely kicks him. He definitely kicks out at him in the back of the thigh. And I was surprised that wasn't looked at. And there was definitely intent there, right? Like you could tell by the way he reacted. But definitely the last one, which I think was Diamande. I might have that wrong on Maeda. The one he clips him with the studs basically on the thigh. I thought Sean in our group chat made a really good point about Maeda. So if you see Maeda react to it, he just sort of continues on, right? And basically looks at the ref like, what's going on here? Now, I commend him for not making more of it than maybe what he could have, but there's no doubt that I think if he actually falls and rolls over and actually takes that hit and, basically maybe adds a little bit of mayo to it, I think that has to get looked at and more than likely he gets sent for that. So I do think in some regards, the actual Maeda standing up and saying, right, what was that? Probably saves him from actually getting sent there. So he was very lucky.
And isn't that the one where he gets kicked by Diamante, doesn't go down, and then straight afterwards, Lundstrom comes through, hits him,
bumps him,
and then
knocks him off.
follows through with an elbow.
And that's all he's good for, really. Let's be honest with you. I mean, he was our best player a few weeks ago at Celtic Park, wasn't he? So he's just a hammer thrower, and good riddance.
Yeah. There was a play, I didn't see it, but I heard the commentary. Apparently, he came through and done exactly what he done last game with studs up, but our player jumped over him, and I missed the actual play. I didn't see it, but I just remember commentary going, "Why isn't that another red card? Because he didn't collide with the player. The player got out of the way, but the action was coming straight through, sliding with studs up again. But because it didn't make an actual collision, because we got out of the way, it's completely fine."
This kind of ties in a little bit with the Maeda discussion, right? He gets clipped, but he stands up and just basically says, "What was that?" Whereas if he falls to the ground and rolls over and goes, "Shit, I've been clipped on the thigh with the studs," we're probably having a different conversation. I think that ties in a little bit. The intent was there, right? The intent to fly through and get somebody. Now, if you have to actively jump out of the way for somebody to, because of a dangerous tackle, that still warrants a booking and a looking at, right? So, yeah, it definitely feels like sometimes it's definitely about the result and the impact on the player that really determines the punishment as opposed to the intent of the action, which is something I'd like to see change a little bit going forward.
Yep, 100%. So we normally have our player focus where we rattle on about it. I think we've pretty much spoken about most of the players. So, boys, I just want to ask you, who was your man of the match in the cup final? Now, I've had a look at 3 papers. When I had a look at the Red Tops, okay, so I've had a look at the Daily Ranger, I've had a look at the Scottish Sun, I've had a look at the Daily Mail, I think it was, I think that was the third one. 2 of them had CCV as the man of the match. One of them had Kelmac. I have no idea how. For me, I don't even think CCV was our best defender. Like, yeah, he cleared a bit and had a few runs, but overall contributions in terms of clearing the headers and putting his head in places he shouldn't have, for me, and I'm probably going to cop some hate because a lot of people don't like him, but I thought Scales was our best player, especially in the first half. I'm probably going to cop it. I thought he was our best player in the first half. In the second half, when everyone was battening down the hatches and the crosses were coming in, that it was like Scales a clear one header, Carter Vickers the next one, Scales the next, Carter Vickers the next. That was an even sort of thing. So I actually thought that was one of Scales' most complete performances for us this season. And he didn't have the massive cock up in the game that put us under pressure at the back. Yeah, he gave the ball away a bit in the first half, but that's because he had so much of it. But yeah, Scales or Carter Vickers for me. But Jared, who was your man of the match?
Joe Hart. They had a couple of decent shots on goals. He looked comfortable. He was coming out, clearing a lot of the balls away. We had a clean sheet. We couldn't win without a clean sheet, and I don't think we could have survived if we went to overtime because it looked like we were dying. And I didn't think Scales had that great a game. Like, he was doing, like, the parts that he done well are his job. That's what he's meant to do. But then he gave the ball away too much. Like, he was making bad decisions, and then he gave away what should have been a free kick. Like, they didn't give a free kick for it. No idea why, but it should have been a free kick. And he didn't even need to. Taylor was right there. I don't know why he's like almost tackling the guy right outside the box when they've got a player who's only good at taking free kicks and penalties. So he's not that good at taking penalties. He just takes so many of them. It makes it look like he's good at penalties. But yeah, I've got to go with Joe Hart because he was the most consistent. He kept a clean sheet and he saved all the balls that he needed to when he wasn't getting pushed in the back.
Patrick McLaughlin, he went on a Beckenbauer run in the first half, Scales.
He did too, yeah.
So you got that. Patrick said CCV, AJ Maeda were his best 3. Can't really fold it. Let's be honest. I thought Scales was our best player in the first half. Overall, I'm really just doing Scales for the content farming. That's what it's called these days. Throw it out there. Get the comments coming in. Fire it up. People may disagree with me, but they'll say, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Cool. Gets me more likes and stuff, so YouTube pay us more. There we go. I'll just say it. I'm joking. Nah, Scales was decent, though. But Shane, what about you?
I know I sort of critiqued him a bit earlier and when we were talking about the left side and the tracking back and so forth. And then obviously taking into your comments around him having to work even harder because Greg's sort of getting sort of sucked inside a little bit towards Scales and covering that way. I thought Maeda was really important for us. And I thought in a game that was really stodgy and required a lot of work rate and a lot of energy, that's what he has in abundance. And I thought he was really important. So even though there was a couple of moments I saw where maybe he could have tracked back harder, taking into consideration what you said, I thought he had a good game outside of that anyway. So he was probably my best.
Fair enough. So we crack on just for you, Jared. I haven't said it yet in this pod, and I've got like almost 55 minutes in, so I had to. But
I think it's giving you a complex.
the question here is, does the winning goal created by lone players Paolo Bernardo and Adam Eder put them on the list of must-sign permanently Lone Stars at Celtic? So the recent list of players who came on loan and performed well and we had to sign them. It was like, no, I don't care what it is. We have to sign them full time. Is Samaras, Edward, Carter Vickers, and yes, Jared, the guy on your shirt, Jota. Do you guys think that Bernardo and Eder have to be signed permanently at the end of these deals? What do you think, Shane? That was a
Geez,
big
it's a
one.
tough question. Yeah, that's So let's see. Could you see the cogs starting to move? I don't know how that comes
You see the
across on the
steam coming
footage.
out of your ears, Shane.
Oh, have to be. It's such a tough thing. I think Eder, yes, I'm on the Eder bandwagon now. I think he's absolutely shown enough in terms of the way he plays in a Rodgers system and the way he plays under Rodgers that he can only get better and grow. And he came in and, let's be honest, we are all a little bit underwhelmed at the time, thinking what's going on here. But he's proven himself to be quality. He scored the winning goal in a cup final, right? That's an amazing thing. But he's done that countless times this season. The 2 penalties at Easter Road, which were really important. Motherwell, he delivers there. Obviously scores the 3rd goal at Ibrox. Okay, we don't take all 3 points, but that's a crucial moment in the game. So he's got good temperament about him, and he can stand up in big moments, as he's shown countlessly. And that's what we actually want from players going forward. So I'm totally on the Eder bandwagon, and yes, we should sign him permanently.
On that, before we go to Bernardo, Eder's come in, played half a season after not playing bugger all in the first half, and he scored 9 goals.
Yep.
He comes in, has a full preseason, and he's working well, as you're saying, Shane, in this Rodgers system. He's not going to be a guaranteed starter every week. I still hope we bring someone in above Kyogo and Eder to start in Europe. But if you get Eder for a whole season, that's a potential 20-goal a season like striker for Celtic. He loves it. It looks like he's loving it up here in Glasgow. The club fits him, and the way we play is suiting him. For me, I would definitely be saying, I've said it before, I want Eder, and I'm going to go on record right now. I would sign Eder over Miovski because there's no guarantee Miovski is going to work in this system with these players and with this coaching staff the same way Eder is. We know what we've got. So for me, that's the thing. Maybe it's time for him to go on loan. He's not gonna break through in front of Kyogo or Eder. So realistically, bring Eder in. But then I still want to be looking at something else. Jared, what are you thinking on the Eder front?
On the Eder, I don't. If we're going to bring in someone in front of Kyogo, I don't think we get Eder because Eder's like 6. I think with just scoring that goal on the weekend, he's put another $1 million onto his price tag. Also, because people are going to be looking at him now. We're probably looking at 6-7 for him, which is already a lot for a backup striker. And then when you're the last people we brought in were Jota and CCV. Both these guys aren't on that level. They're both bench players. But Eder, yeah, I do want to see Eder come in. It's just if we're going to spend the money, and actually we'll talk about it later. But I saw a video that talked about the funds in Scotland, and I kind of agreed with it, which kind of takes the board's point of view. So that will be an interesting conversation. Yes, I say yes, I do want him in, but when you look at the fees, if we're going to be 6-7 million for a backup, and then we're going to get another striker on top of it, I don't think so. If we're not getting another striker, I think it would just be Eder, and then I think we should just get rid of. I don't think there's much point in putting him out on loan at this point. I reckon just sell him and then bring someone else, bring in another striker.
So I'm going to bring up some comments here. Andrew Galea is saying, I don't think we'll get Eder. We can get Bernardo. Patrick McLaughlin is saying 12 million for Eder and Bernardo. We can't ask for anything better than that, surely. Gaddafi Semtex, both a must, even if squad players. Patrick saying, I feel we may need to take Eder on a season loan again next year. If that's the case, I'd want a guaranteed fee put in there.
Yeah.
Andrew's saying we need to get the players Rodgers doesn't want out, need a smaller squad and buy wisely. And this is why I said we're going to bring in, if you bring in Eder, I still want someone over the top of Eder and Kyogo. I have a feeling someone's going to come in for Kyogo as well, Andrew. I just think, how most players, they tend to have a 3-year shelf life at Celtic. I think maybe Kyogo has run his race. I don't want him to leave. I love him. Absolute, probably the best striker at Celtic since Larson, in my opinion. I don't want him to leave, but if someone comes in for him with how he hasn't really looked like he suits Rodgers' system, I think we may let him go.
I think he's maxed out what we'll get for him ever again.
He's
Like with
at
his age and with the way he's playing, I think this is peak sell time.
He's got one big move left. What is he, 28, 29? He's got one big move left in his career. So it's pretty much, we're at that point with him. So Patrick's saying we need 17 and we need to get rid of about 15. Andrew's saying keep O, he's already ours and he's got a lot going for him if Rodgers is any sort of coach. I think he needs to play. That's the thing. So he's not going to play for us on loan then. What do we got here? Andrew's saying
that's what I was saying. Like, if he's not going to play for us, is he going to play for us in the future? Or is he just going to sit on loan, and then we end up selling him? I don't think even if he goes on loan, if he comes back, he'll end up playing. So I just get the money for him now while we are trying to spend. Like people like Yang and Kwon, put them out on loan, they might come back. But I just think you put him out on loan, he's going to play in loan. He's not going to come back because we're always going to be looking for the new striker.
So I'm looking here. RL77, Eder is much more a Rodgers player than Kyogo. And then talking about Patrick saying maybe Brendan Rodgers working on and took him out of the limelight for a spell. He did it with Boyata. And then we'll go back to you, Shane, about the whole Bernardo side. For me, I don't think Bernardo is the O'Reilly replacement, as I said earlier. Bernardo, if he comes in, he's the Moy replacement this season. He can play as a 10, he can play as an 8, he can sit a little deeper if he needs to. That's the role we're looking to play here, but I don't know about that one. What do you think, Shane?
I agree with you. If he's to stay, it's to complement O'Reilly or another 10 if we lose O'Reilly. It's not to take O'Reilly's place. So absolutely agree with you on that front. I don't put him in the same category right now as Eder. I have Eder almost as a must sign, to be honest, whereas I don't have Bernardo that high. I think if we weren't able to get him, that's okay. We'd be able to, find another player. That said, we were talking, or I was talking before about the big moments that Eder's been involved in, and the big goals that he scored. Bernardo scored a couple of big goals this season, obviously at Paradise against Rangers. But then, as was pointed out earlier, he's part of the lead up and puts the ball on a platter for Eder to finish at Ibrox in the 3-3 game. And on the weekend, he's crucial to that goal. It's him getting on the ball. It's him getting into space. But crucially, instead of looking to shift it out wide or try and make something happen, he sees an opportunity to test the keeper, which wasn't done throughout the game, and actually force a save out of Butland, who hadn't really been forced to do anything throughout that 90 of significance. And Butland isn't able to control it. Yeah, and he parries it, right? But he doesn't parry it wide. And Eder, being the quality player that he is, knows I can get on the end of this. And, in testament to Kyogo again, right? I'm getting back into the goal discussion a little bit. Testament to Kyogo and the work rate that he did by dragging the centre halves, particularly Balogun, up and down the park and exhausting them, meant that they weren't probably switched on at that point, right? Eder was. But Bernardo's crucial to that. So in a lot of big moments, even some that Eder's been involved in, Bernardo has been linked to it as well. So what I like about him is his poise. And this is where the Moy chat's really important. You think of the way Moy plays. He was a smart footballer, right? He was always quick up here. He may not have looked the quickest on the pitch. He might not have, been able to out sprint a turtle, right? But he was always thinking. He was quick up here. And I see a little bit of that in Bernardo. I just see the smarts kicking in. And I like the way he complements our midfield. And you sort of saw when he came on with O'Reilly and Kelmack, just that we didn't really have Hatate pulling strings or getting involved, but he was able to come in. And that poise, when the game's a bit helter-skelter and things are happening up and the game's getting stretched, you need players who are smart and have that poise. I keep coming back to that word to be able to deliver. And he has that in spades. And I've seen that a couple of times. So whilst he's not at the same level as Ida in terms of absolutely, I would still be interested in keeping him. And I definitely think he's worth taking the punt on a permanent deal.
Jared, what's your thoughts?
Yep, I'd keep him. Like, we've got the option, so like, let's get him. You also see, like, he did get brought in at the end of this game when we must win. That says something about him that Brendan thinks about him as well. He was also one of the first choice midfielders when we played in the Champions League. So I think he'll, like, instead of going find someone else, I think Brendan would want to keep him. I don't think he's the Matt O'Reilly replacement, like we were saying. He's more like the Moy replacement. And our biggest issue is that attack. We need to bring in a Matt O'Reilly replacement that is like a solid attacking midfielder that can actually break through. Like, how many goals are we replacing if Matt O'Reilly goes? Like 19 goals, 18 assists. Like, that's what we need. And I don't think that's Bernardo's sort of game.
And then
But
we talk about what
we do want him.
And then we talk about what we're just talking about with Kyogo as well. And if he was to go, there's just on 40 goals between the two of them that you've got to come up with. So where I'm saying before here, just trying to find the comment that I was going to bring up, but Patrick's saying Ichineo on a free transfer and SOS Vardy as a backup to Ida. We know Rogers signed Ichineo down at Leicester, likes him, suits his system, so that could be a good shout. Mahesh is saying Andrew would love Kyogo, considering the press they're playing. I don't want to sell him, but if it needs to happen. Andrew's saying we need to keep O'Reilly if we're serious about Champions League. I'd love to keep him, but I don't see that happening. We got here, Bernardo is still very young, worth keeping. There's that word, a good project player. Come on, Andrew, you're trying to wind everyone up.
But that's something that like, we've got a set price for him, and even if we keep him for 1 or 2 years, he's going to be worth more than what we're going to buy him for. So he's a very low risk for me, because whatever we sell him for in the next 1, 2, 3 years is going to be more than what we're actually going to be paying for him now.
100%.
It's only 22.
Makes profit.
Only 22. You know, yeah.
He looks like about 26, doesn't he? Or 28. RL77
He does.
Portuguese under 22 captain, and he's shown up in big games. No brainer for squad depth and quality. And then Andrew, what was the one before? Where he said, gotcha. Yep. So we know what was going on.
Project
for me,
player.
Yep, 100%. So we'll just quickly rattle through a few things. Post-match celebrations. How good was it seeing Bruni and Lenny, hanging over the side there as the players were going up to get their medals, just giving them five, giving them shaking hands or whatever, dapping them up, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. The funny part was that as the Huns were walking up to get their losers medals, you see Bruni, he just stands there just looking at them with disdain, like still to this day, like that was the thing that got me. Love Bruni, and it was just like, really? Just the way he looked at him, and it was like, I wouldn't even piss on you if you're on fire. It was just great.
I really disagree with losers' medals.
Well,
get rid of them.
I disagree with them being on the stage as a celebration like that. Maybe if you get an award. So in the AFL here, you do, I believe, get some sort of medal or acknowledgement for finishing runner-up in a grand final. But it's not done on stage out on the ground. That's all about the winning team and the celebration. It's not about getting it, and it's done privately in the rooms. No, I think if you are going to do that, that's more appropriate.
Yeah.
I hate losing more than I like winning anything. So if I was ever given a loser's medal, it'd be in the bin. I'll tell you, growing up, playing basketball, I played in 7 grand finals in junior years. Did not win a single one. To this day, do I have that runners-up trophy or medal anywhere? No. I wonder where they are. They're at the tip.
Getting to your point about the post-match celebration, something that I really loved was actually at the start of the game. So when they were bringing the trophy out, and Lustig was obviously a hand-on trophy. But what I loved about it is he had the hoops on. You could just see it peeking
under
out
his
through his
jacket.
shirt or his jacket, sorry. And it was just, and you combine that with what you saw with Bruni and his reaction to the Rangers players, and you're just looking at those two players who are lifelong Celts. That feeling, and this club will never leave them, and what this club means to them. And I really loved that moment, and just seeing, and you could just see the hoops, and you're like, good on you, Lustig. The only thing that was missing was a little policeman's hat with him.
Did he rip that out at the Legends game yesterday? That's the real question.
I don't know. I didn't actually catch that.
Neither did I. I was asking for the comments. Yeah, good fun. So the episode named Double Winning Mentality. Finally getting to that. Is Bruni right when he says Rangers don't have the mentality to beat Celtic and win trophies? That's the exact quote. Rangers don't have the mentality to beat Celtic and win trophies. Bruni, you're a mental bastard, and I love you, and you are so correct. Did he club things? That's all I have to say. Jared, what do you think?
I don't think it's really an opinion. Just
Facts.
look at the facts. Like, it doesn't matter what your opinion on this is. Like, they have won one in several years. Like, as soon as they get a sniff of being ahead, they lose to Ross County. Like, and Dundee, draw with Dundee. Like, that's just a fact at this point. There's a thing called evidence that we like to look at, and you can't argue with it. Well done, Bruni.
All I have to say is the air up there at such a high level of winning at the top of the league, it's pretty thin. It's not for everyone, and it must be inducing some nosebleeds for all those Huns. Shane, what do you think?
Similar to Jared, I don't think it's opinion. It's probably stating fact, to be honest. They've played us 4 times in the league this season, and then obviously in the cup final here, and not once have they bested us this season, as a whole. And you could argue that they've barely even put together a solid 45 against us this season. Every time that they've come up against us, and every time the only time that really we didn't have the rhetoric of we're coming, here we are, you're ours now, we've got this. We didn't really hear it so much this weekend gone, to be honest, or at least I didn't hear it as much, to be honest. But prior to that, it's all been talk. It's all about them coming and they're going to turn us over and this is it. And they've never showed up, or at least, particularly in the first half of a couple of games, they've never showed up. So until they can actually do that, they don't really possess what they need to beat us and to take any trophies off us. So I think, it's not really opinion, is it?
They need players with better attitudes. You look at the last game of the season was a nothing game. They had already lost and they were drawing with Hearts, and they're still telling their fans to shut up and celebrating their goals. Then you look at Silva celebrating a goal when they're already down. Just stuff like that. It's like you can tell that's not a winning mentality. You look at Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly scores a goal and we're already up. He's just going, all right, cool, grabbing the ball. Let's get back. Let's score another one.
Well, I mean, that was kind of set. I mean, there's countless examples of it, but I mean, let's hark back to the 3-3 draw at Ibrox, right? And the outpouring of celebration for getting a point that day and, going around celebrating a moral victory. Now, if that wasn't, I don't want to tell them how to improve or fix what they need to fix. I don't want to give them any help in that regard, but that was a great insight in terms of where their mentality was. They scraped a point that day, and yet it was a big celebration. Then look what happened from there. You reverse the roles, there's no way we're celebrating that result. We're kicking ourselves that we didn't go on and get a fourth.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something here. Maestro95 has said, played 4 wins and a draw, double top, like that. And then you've got, where's the other one? Patrick McLaughlin has gone one further. Last 2 seasons, we played 11, won 8, drew 2, lost 1, and the loss was a dead rubber.
That's right. Yeah, that was after we'd already wrapped up the league.
So that says it all. So The Moral Cup takes them. The Moral Victory Cup takes them to 119 trophies. SRL 77. Well played. So, what we'll do is we will have a bit of a chuckle at some of the memes and stuff that's come out for the Huns since the derby, and then we've got a couple of things to talk about, and we'll probably be done in about 5 minutes or so, I reckon. So we'll start off with, I don't need that one just now. We'll go this one here. There the boys are, as I was talking about, giving them 5 and shaking hands and everything. Next one. Saw that sticker.
Oh, wow.
Todd Cantwell after the game, don't talk to me right now. Not in the mood. Really just don't, in his story.
Jesus Christ. Stay off TikTok, you idiot. Oh, that's on Twitter, is it? Or is it X?
Insta maybe.
Instagram.
Oh, let's put the phone
The only
away,
one you
Todd.
didn't say.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at him on the trend. Hey there, you with a sad face, suffering your jocks.
Is that real? I thought that was AI.
Nah, that's real.
No, there's nothing nothing about that one.
This one's funny because all their idiot ultras are wearing these masks at the game, right? So the cops and that can't make out their faces. That actually worked well for them because, no one will spot them in the crowd sulking and being able to say, look at you, you big sook. It's actually worked for them that way.
New Blue Man Group.
And this one here, the world's most successful club, Bob the Builder, get it down. That's the AI one out the front there.
Yeah, I think that might be AI.
Definitely is. There you go. They're all getting a talking to. Brilliant. We see this one on Twitter. Blue Nose is today once again we see the working of a Celtic mafia. How much longer are we going to watch open corruption on behalf of one club, Celtic FC? Yet absolutely no investigation. 3 years and every decision VAR goes in favour of them. Funny that, but hey, they're oppressed.
How many games was it that they went without conceding a penalty in the league?
It was like 60 something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that tells
We
you
got
all you
this
need.
one here, Simpsons one. Honey, you should have seen us today against Celtic. No, we didn't, but we were this close.
I am really disappointed that you didn't do it in his voice.
I can't do it.
I'm not
I
going
know
to
my
try.
limits, Jared. This one here, Greg Taylor's Instagram. Picture the celebration. I love it. Special club. Alistair Johnson's comments. Absolute on fire. So go to the next one. Eating a shush burger tonight, wee man. And then look at the comments here. Laughing emojis, no chance. Well played. Then let's have a follow. Thank God for Al Ali. Now they're acknowledging it. I just have to bring this picture up because it's great. Double winners. Then the Beckham's one. Rangers got cheated all season. Be honest. There is a Catholic conspiracy against Rangers to stop us winning trophies. That's not the reason. We are shite. Thank you. Brilliant. Tough guy Todd shits his tights. This one was good. Clement Blast board saying timing of the Smith statue unveiling interrupted team's preparations in loss to Celtic.
Oh, Jesus.
Shushburger, well, getting him in his face.
He looks like he wants to take a bite out of that burger.
There you go. There's the Alan McGregor one.
Oh, it's John Hunt in the background as well.
The Lone Ranger, he's still waiting for the penalty. Brendan Rodgers is facing Rangers first in Philip Clement as Celtic boss takes on true heavyweight Hugh Keevans. Yeah, what a story that was. I love this one. Kenny Miller's still raging. Another one from Blue Nose.
Oh.
Celtic Mafia runs the game in Scotland, both on and off the park, yet the hatred of Rangers from supporters of every other club makes them blind to the only club that benefits from corruption in Scottish football. When will they finally open their eyes? Some people need to give Twitter a day off when they lose. Look at this mob. Look at their faces. And then, Jared, you mentioned this one early on.
Oh, you got it.
Celtic Rangers banter group on Facebook. So from a Rangers fan, Chris Cook, I have penned a letter to the SFA stating I will not acknowledge, look how he spells it, acknowledge, Celtic's cup win or league title due to cheating by the officials. Rangers have had 6 old firm goals chalked off for no reason. Also, Celtic should start next season with a 10-point dedication due to anti-asthmatic songs and flags. And then look at the names: Chris Cook, William Mason, boy, the best one here, Liam Rod the Prod. Oh, they've lost the plot. It's absolute gold, some of this stuff. I had to bring it up just for a chuckle. So that's what you get.
That joke with the misspelling with the acknowledge, you shouldn't yoke about that.
That's in Liam territory. What are you doing? So we'll go through some of the comments here. The Moral Cup only stopped a 10-point gap in the end. Walter Smith's statue looks more like Lewis Walsh.
I've seen that, yes.
We don't stop. RL77, snakes on a train. Big Flip nearly put, Cantwell on his ass. The arrogant of the cream bun is a thing of last century. As masks, gimp masks. No, I think the gimp masks are actually, probably nicer. Celtic Mafia. What? Al Pacino in the hoops. Some of this stuff is absolute. There's some absolute brilliant stuff in there. There we go. As Patrick said, they've completely lost their minds. Whoa. What's this one? Lads, it was brilliant despite the ref. Strange love. So, yeah, it was some absolute amazing stuff going on there. Pegleg, you put this comment up. Lads, can you talk about transfer budget and what we need in the summer at some stage? I think we'll do that. We're going to have our season review probably next week, and then we'll get into that the following week. So it's probably a week or two away before we'll dive into all of that. Big Rab, guys, after having a chance to watch some of the loan players from the club, MJ and Tilio, are looking like they could come back and be very useful. Would you keep any? Shane, what are you thinking?
No, MJ and his time is up. It's time for him to move on. It would be best for him as well. It just hasn't worked for him at Celtic. Lowell, I really like. I think he's got a good future. So I'd be keen to have him back in the squad. And look, we're Celtic Down Under. We've got to back our boy Marco Tilio, even though he did go back to City. Guys, I know what's coming next. There it is. Yep.
It will be
true to your word
at some point.
True to your word. But look, he's worth keeping if he can get over his injury. Give him, hopefully he gets over this last injury that kept him out for the rest of the A-League season or the remainder of the season. Give him a full preseason, get him on the tours wherever we're going, over to the US, see how he goes, get him back as part of the squad. Worst comes to worst, loan him out to hopefully he gets over what he's had to deal with here and the homesickness side of things as well. And that if he does go back, loan him out to another Scottish club or down south, right? Definitely keep him.
So I'm just laughing at a couple of the comments here. So RL77, I'd like to acknowledge Shane's terrible joke.
Thank
Gone
you.
Yourself saying keep Tilio. Andrew saying give Quantico in the preseason. Tilio was a dud. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Jared, what are you thinking on any of the loan players?
I'm really excited to see what Bolson Lowell can do. MJ, I think he is at the peak of what we're ever going to get paid for him right now. And he doesn't do a lot when he comes back. So I reckon cash in on him, send him back, send him to whoever wants him and wants to pay for him. Tilio, I don't know. He seems to be always injured and he doesn't like leaving Australia. So, but it would be good to have someone on the wing to see what he's got before we do something with him. And Kwon, who knows? We might even sell him to St Mirren, because St Mirren just sold the other Aussie Bacchus to, which is very weird. A second, not second division, third division, which is League Two. That's what I'm trying to say. To a League Two team. Why? Why has he done that?
Well, they got promoted, didn't they? They're up to League One, I think, next season.
That's right. Yeah. So they're going to League One. Still, that's what I meant. They're second tier down. Like, he should be a Champions League team or stay in Scotland. Like, I don't know. Who knows? So maybe maybe there's now a spot for Kwon there. We might be able to cash in on him if we're not going to bring him back.
Fair enough. So what we'll do is we'll go to last topic. We'll discuss what I was going to do is all forgiven now with Brendan Rodgers. I think that's one for a later pod, so we'll leave that. But we're going to go to because that's a nice cliffhanger for you. We'll probably discuss that on Thursday, I reckon. But what I want to do here is we'll go to our final thoughts. So, Shane, over to you.
Two things from me. Obviously, didn't get to spend the whole game there, but for the second half that I was there, I've never caught a game at Scruffy Murphy's in Sydney before. I've been up there for when Celtic came to town last in Sydney, but I haven't actually caught an actual game there with the group that watched along there. And I did really enjoy it. Really good atmosphere. It was a little bit tense, of course, but still great atmosphere. And it absolutely went off when Ida scored. I'm sure there's some footage of me sort of jumping around like a madman. Don't worry, for anyone, no stools were hurt. No stools were hurt in the process of celebrating that goal. But no, I really enjoyed it. And if I'm ever back up that way and Celtic's playing, I'll absolutely get back to Scruffy Murphy's to watch a game. And any Sydney siders who haven't caught a game there, I'd highly recommend it. And then just a quick shout out to a gentleman by the name of Dave. I was walking along. I was at the Rocks Market on Sunday, proudly wearing my hoops. And Dave spied me from a fair way away and came over just to chat all things Celtic, and was sort of, giving me a rundown of his time supporting the club and his favourite players and the history of the club. And it was a pleasure to chat to you, Dave. So, cheers, mate.
Jared, your final thought?
Well, yesterday I just bought tickets to Anthony Jeselnik. So if anyone's interested in Anthony Jeselnik, he's touring Australia. People are like, who the hell is Anthony Jeselnik? He's a stand-up comedian from America. I would recommend his special on Netflix, Thoughts and Prayers. It's hilarious, but don't watch it if you're a pussy, because there's trigger warnings.
My final thought is pretty simple. I think Liam's not here to, take the whole, topic and flow of the pod below that line there. So I'll do it right now. Rangers are like Johnny Sins. They're always coming. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you next week. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.